Hello, how we doing? Felt like a weird ending. Happy Mother's Day. Yay, moms. We love you. About 30 years ago, a youth pastor, a friend of mine, came up with an analogy for his youth group. And it's this, and so I'm stealing it from him this morning. I want you to imagine this rope, that it goes on forever. Like there is no ending. And I want you to think of your existence, this representing your existence forever, unending existence. And this little tiny red part is your current life, your life in this world, this short life in this world. But this rope continues as your life continues on and on and on. And most of us are stuck right here, unaware, even with our backs to the reality of eternity, that we were made for a larger, broader, unending story, and we live in ignorance of that reality. And we're focused on getting what we want. Many of us are stuck in addiction, are stuck by our own stuff. Jesus actually talked about this when he said, you gain the whole world. Your whole focus is this, what I want, what I need, me. You gain the whole world, but you lose your soul. It's a powerful visual on the reality of what life actually is. Now, we're in a series in 1 Thessalonians. If you have a Bible, go ahead and open it. Maybe you have an orange Bible under your chair or a Bible app. But the Thessalonian people were mostly young people, and were in the midst of a world that was just focused on this moment, focused on their own appetites and desires, unaware of the reality that life goes on even after this existence. And they were living in a culture that was dead set against Jesus and his followers. And we'll find out why here in just a bit. But when these young Thessalonians heard the gospel, it captured their imagination. When they heard it, they couldn't get over it. And they began living in a way that was so attractive and so appealing to everyone else. They were living with this perspective of the larger story, and it was changing the way they were living in the moment. It brought depth and meaning to their day, and it was so attractive for the people around them. Maybe you can remember a time when the gospel first made sense to you. I remember when I was like, oh. I remember when I invited Jesus into my life, and it was super transformative for me, and I wanted everyone I knew to get in on it. It's like, and I annoy my family with this, but I feel like I could be an amazing movie marketer. Like, I go see a movie, and if I like it, I come out like this evangelist. Dude, have you seen the new Guardians? It's insane. Like, I'm over the top. My wife is like, please, you're overselling it. But I just get so pumped, and I'm so excited. The Thessalonian people were just like this, but about Jesus, they're telling everyone. They can't help themselves. And they're telling it to all the people in Thessaloniki, northern Greece, all of Greece, the surrounding nations, and an insane movement happens. Now, I want you to picture how this plays out, because I want you to understand what's going on. So imagine a teenage girl hears about a gathering, and so she goes and she checks it out. This young teenage girl walks into this space, and immediately she senses, this is a different room. She immediately senses a peace she's never known before, and she hears these people talking about Jesus. They're talking about the love of God in a way she's never even imagined before, about this God who came, who revealed his love, who lived among us, and then he was killed. But the grave couldn't hold him. He rose from the grave, and he is longing now to restore you, to make all things right in you, and to restore all of creation, beginning with you, here and now, for eternity. She's captivated by the message. She walks out of the gathering feeling like a new person. And she goes to her friends. You've heard about these people called the Way? They see life a different way, a broader way, a bigger way. They don't stand with their back to eternity. They face it. They're very aware that the future could break into the present, and they're going to live this thing out. You got to come with me and hear about the Way. And so her friends are like pumped, and so they come. And the same thing happens to them. They open up the scriptures and they see the prophecies, and it all just seems so clear to them. They speak with the eyewitnesses of Jesus. And these friends of her, like the night before, believe. And in that moment, her friends become the dwelling place of God's Spirit, and all of a sudden, profound peace and passion and joy enters their life in a way that it never had. This is the picture of what is happening in northern Greece in the first century. It was amazing. It was insane. Last week we read the first few verses. Now we're going to pick off right where we left off, verse 6 of chapter 1 in 1 Thessalonians. Just read it quietly here as I read it out loud. Paul is writing, "You became imitators of us and of the Lord, for you welcomed the message in the midst of severe suffering with joy given by the Holy Spirit. And so you became a model to all the believers in Macedonia and Achaia. The Lord's message rang out from you, not only in Macedonia and Achaia. Your faith in God has become known everywhere. Therefore, we do not need to say anything about it, for they themselves report what kind of reception you gave us." Like, everyone is talking about this. So let me pause here. So Paul and a couple of his homeboys, his companions, his compadres, enter Thessaloniki, and there is an unusually warm reception for their words, their message. There's a wide openness. And so Paul and his buddies stay. They're like, dude, let's just stay here. And they invest. Their investment is not in vain. These people are wide open. They're soaking it all in. They're learning how to pray and seek God and understand the scriptures more clearly. They're becoming more and more aware of God's Spirit in them, and they're being empowered by Him. They become this unstoppable force. Now, I hang out with probably 2 to 5 teenagers a week. And I hang out with 2 categories of kids. Because as a youth pastor, we have this growing, awesome group of young people, and I have to figure out, all right, who am I spending time with? The first category is those in crisis. Maybe their family is blown up. Maybe something tragic has happened at school, and they're suffering. I get with that first category. Then there's the second category. I meet with that kid who's struggling, and then I look up and I go, who should I meet with tomorrow? This is kind of my week. And typically I look down and there's a kid right here. And I go, oh, you, this kid, that's the second category. The kid who's just right there. And they're like, Brock, can we hang out? Can we meet at Starbucks? I I want to know Jesus the way you're talking about. I want to be able to share my faith with my friends. Can you help me? And they are calling me and they're texting me. Can we meet at Starbucks? They're hungry. That second category are the majority of our kids right now. They're right there by my side. They want to grow. The Thessaloniki people, this is their heart. They are soaking everything in that Paul and his companions are sharing. And then they're sharing this new faith with the friends around them. And there is this amazing movement, and it's noticed by Greece and all the surrounding nations. Let's keep reading, verse 9. For they themselves report what kind of reception you gave us. They tell how you turned to God from idols to serve the living and true God. That's verse 9. We got to read that. This theme right here now, the reason why I'm reading this verse again is because this theme of turning from idols and worshiping the one true God is the theme that you see through the rest of the letter. That's the key verse. So we got to pause on it. The call to worship God rather than idols. This was simply unheard of in that world, in the first century world. It would be like asking modern day people today to turn from using cars, computers, and cell phones. Like, what? You ever tried taking a cell phone from a teenager? They're like, have you lost your mind? My phone is my life. They can't even imagine an existence without it. Phones today were like gods of the Greek and Roman paganism. They were everywhere. I don't think you understand when I say everywhere. If you want to plant a tree, in your backyard, you would go and pray to the relevant God. If you're going on a business trip, a quick visit to the appropriate shrine was in order. If your son or your daughter are getting married, serious and costly worship to the relevant deity was expected and demanded. At every turn in the road, the gods were there, like a cell phone in everybody's pocket. And these gods were unpredictable. Sometimes they would be at war with each other, the stories would go. And so you would do everything you could to calm and appease the gods and to get them on your side. Plus, not only are there gods everywhere, they began worshiping Caesar. They believed that Caesar became a god. And then his successor, Augustus, started calling himself the Son of God, as did his successor, Tiberius. So the worship of the emperor was expected and demanded as well. Okay, so you got the gods everywhere. You're worshiping the emperor every day. There's a third thing. The city of Rome itself was deified. Shrines to Rome and the emperor sprang up all over the known world as local rulers were keen to demonstrate their political loyalty. Cities would trip over themselves to quickly build temples for these new divinities. Now, in that world, Paul and his companions are telling people to turn from that, all of that, and worship the one true God. This God who made himself known in Jesus. And he had been raised from the dead, demonstrating that he indeed was God. I want us to understand what this world was like. No one had ever said things like this before. No one had ever called them to something like this. And the people in Thessaloniki, knowing if they receive this and act on what Paul is telling them it will lead, dude, it will be risky. It will lead to severe suffering. But they do it. And when they do it, they discover at the same time something odd. Suffering and yet deep joy simultaneously. Look at it with me again, verse 6. Paul says, you became imitators of us and of the Lord, for you walk in the message, here it is, in the midst of severe suffering and with joy given by the Holy Spirit. Suffering and joy. You hear that? Suffering with joy. Impossible, right? You ever had suffering and joy at the same time? You ever experienced that? Impossible, right? Birthing a baby, suffering, and joy. That is what conversion was about in the first century. And what is it's about today? Conversion. Turning from this and embracing this, experiencing the suffering maybe of letting go and of the people around you not liking that, and experiencing life to the fullest. That word turned in verse 9, it's as close as Paul gets to the technical term for conversion itself. So if you're a theology nerd like me, conversion, it's what happens when someone stops going in one direction, turns around and begins going in the opposite direction. Conversion, turning, repenting. This is what it's like. You're heading to San Francisco. The truth of the direction you're going hits you in the face. You realize you're going down the 5, going south. Bro, San Francisco ain't south. So what do? This is what Paul's saying. You are literally going the wrong way. Turn. You're going this way. It's leading the opposite direction. You got to turn. Get off the off-ramp. Go across the bridge. Get back going the right direction. Go north. This is what he's saying. This is what the Thessaloniki people did. What do you do when you discover the truth? You leave, you let go of this, and you pick up this. You make a U-turn. These young people make a U-turn. And they do it knowing full well, this will be against the culture. My family will reject me. My businesses will be closed down. I possibly could be killed. My children could be taken from me. They could be sold into slavery. Suffering, severe suffering. This better be true. This has got to be, I ain't wasting my time on maybe it's true. They're convinced. They embrace the truth. They turn, they drop all that stuff, and suffering comes. See, to say that Jesus is the Son of God and Caesar is not the Son of God will get you killed. It will definitely bring suffering your way, and it does, but they are compelled by the truth and empowered by the Spirit to not only endure, but check this out, like a newborn mother, a mother with a brand new baby who's just been through it all, there's a twinkle in their eye. They are empowered by God Himself, and they are filled with an unexpected joy in doing this. Back to the rope. They decide that this part of the rope cannot be their everything. They want eternity to live with the perspective of eternity today. They want the future to break in, who they will be in the future to break in to the present, and this becomes their obsession. They want a life connected to God now. They want to represent the future today. So they make a trade. I'm not going to turn my back on eternity. They make a trade. My life, my way, for his life, for his way. And conversion happens, change takes place, and they turn. Now, I have friends, really close friends, who believe that basically all religions lead you ultimately to God. Good friends of mine believe that there are many spiritual paths to the top of the mountain. And it doesn't really matter, honestly, how you get there. But I got to tell you, I understand that, but that is missing the point of the Christian story in significant ways. See, we have a God who doesn't sit passively looking to see if you'll make it to him. Maybe they'll figure it out on their own. See, we have a God who came to us. You missed that, you've missed everything. He came to us. He became one of us. He lived among us. His love compelled him to get off of the mountain and to reveal who he really is, what he's really like. Now, maybe you have heard, it's really well documented, of Jesus appearing in the dreams of, at this point, millions of Muslims around the world. Google it. Muslims are being visited by Jesus in their dreams. He's literally running after them. Now, I have a friend, and just recently, I heard him tell this story. He was, a few weeks ago, on his way to the airport. He called and got a Lyft driver. The Lyft driver picks him up and asks, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" My friend says, "Oh, I'm a pastor." The Lyft driver goes, "Oh my goodness," and he looks intently into the rearview mirror at my friend and goes, "Sir, I'm a Muslim, but I had a dream a couple of nights ago and I can't shake it. Can I tell you my dream?" My friend's like, "Yeah, bring it." He said, "In my dream, there was a baby. A little baby, but he spoke to me like an adult. It's this little baby speaking adult words, and this baby is telling me that he wants to become my life, that he wants to reveal who he really is to me, and he wants to work in my and my entire family's life. And I have been haunted by this dream. I can't shake it. I was wondering if you could interpret the dream." This is on the way to the airport, just like 3 weeks ago. My friend goes, "Dude, I've never had the gift of dream interpretation, but I got this one." He said, Jesus in the scriptures, his name actually is Emmanuel, which means God with us. God with us. God came to us. He didn't sit back passively, but in love, he came and lived and died on a cross and rose again, and he longs to give us life, true life, meaningful life, redeemed life. And in the car ride, the last block, before they got to the airport, this man prayed to receive Jesus as his life. That's cool. Now here's, I think, even more cool. This man now goes to my friend's church. And his entire family and extended family goes to his church too. He's been going for a few weeks, and they're growing and being transformed. This is what is happening in the lives of the people in Thessaloniki. This is the first century, and it is amazing. And Jesus is running after these people. He really wants them to know what he is like and who he is, and he wants to redeem their stories. He wants to bring meaning to their day, significance. And so these people turn to Jesus away from their gods. All right. But now the passage takes an unexpected twist. And actually, Paul stops talking about the present, and now he starts talking about the future. He stops talking about the present struggle with joy, and he turns and he focuses down the rope on the future. And it sounds kind of scary, but take heart, it is all about hope. Let's look again, reread verse 9 and verse 10. Here we go. Verse 9, for they themselves report what kind of reception you gave us. They're wide open. They tell how you turned to God from idols to serve the living and true God. Here it is, verse 10. And to wait for his Son from heaven, whom he raised from the dead, Jesus, who rescues us from the coming wrath. What coming wrath? There's more wrath coming? See, what Paul begins to unpack now for the next bit, he begins in this verse, is the time when Jesus returns. We're going to see this in the coming weeks. Yep, there will be a time when Jesus will return to restore all things. Now, we don't know when this is going to be. We don't know the day. We don't know the hour. But he will come, and he will make all things right. And in doing so, he will destroy all that distorts and defaces his world. All of the evil in the world that has violated his creation, all of the evil that has ever brought pain, all of the evil that has ever brought suffering and dehumanized people, all of that corruption will be dealt with. All of the hate, all of the abuse, all of it, all of the oppression, he will deal with it. That word wrath can also be translated as rage and fury. He hates what destroys his creation. He hates it. Like a mother who hates what has corrupted their child, what is destroying their child. He hates that. Jesus will return and deal with his enemy. He will make all wrongs right. He will bring justice. Justice will come. But please, please take heart. See, in his coming, Jesus himself will deliver you. Jesus himself will deliver his people. His coming will be good for us. And this was central to the Christian hope in the first century, and it is central to the Christian hope right now, today. And if you miss what the invitation is like, if you miss what the invitation was for the Thessalonians, if you miss that it's actually for you too, that you can turn from what is dehumanizing you and turn to God who is longing to redeem you, if you miss this, if you think this is just a game, or just one of many belief systems, or maybe when I'm older, then I'll let go of the stuff that is killing me and I'll finally turn to God, then you're missing the whole message. You're missing the point in epic ways. Best way I can explain it, at least right now, is in high school I played soccer. And I was terrible. Now, I was a basketball player, and I was a really good basketball player. And in fact, our team, we were known, I went to high school in Washington, D.C. We were known as a powerhouse school. 3 out of the 4 years in high school, we went to the championship game. Hey, watch yourself. Don't bring up that school. DeMatha. But we went to a small school. Powerhouse basketball team. Every other sport sucked. The soccer team came to the basketball team and said, we don't have enough to field a soccer team. Will you guys join the soccer team? I'm a freshman now. So all those basketball players are like, yeah, this will keep us in shape for basketball season. So we joined the soccer team, freshman year. Now I got to tell you something. 4 years go by and we never won a game. I was a forward, which means I played the position where you're supposed to score. I never scored a game. 4 years, I never scored a single goal. We made terrible teams look good. Most of our players were over 6'3". We are not supposed to be soccer players. It's the last game. It's the last game, senior year. There's about a minute left. Dude, a minute left, and I'm never playing soccer again. There's about a minute left. It's tied up, 0-0. One of their players gets hurt. He's laying. It doesn't even look like he's literally hurt. I know soccer players are great actors. He's hurt. Our coach, there's a stop and play. Our coach, get over here. We go sprinting over to our coach. And he's like, guys, there's about a minute left. We could actually win this game. We could win it. And we're sitting there and we are captivated by what he is saying. He goes, Brock. I'm like, yes, coach. Rudy is going to dribble down the field. And he's going to pass it to Anthony in the middle. And you're going to be on the left side. He's going to pass it to you. And then you're going to kick it in the goal. And we will win a game. And I was thinking, yeah, right. Like, I've never scored. Anthony never passes the ball, and Rudy sucks at dribbling. None of this has ever happened before. But for whatever reason, we run back onto the field with belief. We could do this. You want to guess what happens? What'd you say? 0. If it ends 0-0, that would be a terrible story, Cam. All right. No. Rudy, for the first time in his life, somehow gets ahead of the defense, and he's dribbling down the right side of the field. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's happening. Anthony is in the middle. Rudy kicks it to Anthony in the middle. He doesn't move. He's never done a move. And he boots it to me. And I'm on the left side in front of the goal. Only he boots it way too hard. And it ricochets off my collarbone. And it heads right for the goal. But the goalie is there. And he stops it, but then he fumbles the ball and it rolls back to me. And I take the ball and I'm like, boom, goal. Oh my God. We start running and celebrating. We're doing cartwheels. I'm sliding on the grass on my knees like Argentina who? Look at us. We're laughing and cartwheeling and jumping and celebrating. We're jumping on top of it. We're now doing a dog pile, a celebratory dog pile. It was insanity. It was absolutely insane. It was the only glorious moment in my entire 4-year career of playing soccer. What if I would have missed it? What if I would have missed that turning, that moment? What would you think of me if when Rudy passed the ball to Anthony and then Anthony kicked the ball to me and I was just sitting there on the grass, uninterested, picking dandelions, daydreaming? What would you think if when Anthony passed me the ball, I was disinterested, sitting on the ground, eating a hot dog, the ball flies over my head, out of bounds, because I'm just detached? What would you think? You'd think like, what the? Dude, did you not hear what the coach said? Are you that disinterested? You'll never win it. You'll never win a game like that. Like, you missed the whole plan. You missed the whole thing. I am urging you this morning that you not live your life and miss the whole point. I am urging you that you turn to either begin or renew a relationship with Jesus this morning, just like the young Thessalonian people did. To walk down here and say, I'm making Jesus my life. I'm done with the game. I am turning from that stuff. I am letting go. And I'm turning to Him this morning. And many of you have a bunch of wonderful excuses for why you shouldn't come down here and just go, Jesus, I'm all in. You've got great excuses. You're like, well, the church has too many hypocrites. With all due respect, you know that has nothing to do with it. The medical profession has a lot of crazy people in it, but you don't let that keep you from medicine. Someone else's hypocrisy has nothing to do with you. And besides, you've probably had your own moments of hypocrisy. Be glad. Jesus loves hypocrites. There's room for you as well, and this room is full of them. That's the point. Jesus didn't come for the perfect. None of us in here are. He came for the imperfect. So that's you and me. That's every single one of us. Others of you might say, you know what? I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it later. And I want to warn you of that for two reasons. One, you're not promised a later. There's no promise of tomorrow. But I think even more importantly, vitally more importantly, is you are missing out on this whole thing right now. And you're choosing stuff that ultimately will lead you actually into more brokenness, more addiction, more isolation, more suffering. I could list excuse after excuse for why you should say no to Jesus today, why you should delay that. But don't let today's excuses lead you to tomorrow's regrets. Today is the day to trust in Jesus. In Jesus as your life. Some of you are thinking, well, what will people think of me if I come down front? What impression will they have? My family is here. My mom is here. She thinks I'm already following Jesus. Listen, if you're thinking that, and I say this in love, you're missing the whole point. That should be the title of my sermon. Don't miss the whole point. You don't understand Christianity at all. Did you know that right now in Afghanistan, people's heads are being cut off because they're followers of Jesus? That's happening right now. You can handle walking down here in front of a room full of people who will be celebrating the fact that you're doing this. You can handle that. So here's the deal. Will you stand with me if you're able? Stand with me. And if you this morning, can we dim the lights a bit? If you this morning, if God is speaking to your heart and saying, it's time for you to make a public statement to say, Jesus, become my life. Jesus is my life. And whether you have done this 100 times or whether this will be your first time, the altar is yours. And so I ask you, if you want to get right with Jesus, if you want to make him your life, come to the front right now because we want to pray for you. Just make your way to the front. Prayer team, come down here. Just come on down. Make your way. Now, keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. Now, some of you, your heart is hard and your prayers are cold. But you sense in your heart of hearts, I haven't been living well. This is your moment. I'm going to ask the prayer team to just come and lay your hands on people and pray with them. And the band is going to lead us through a little bit of worship. Let's all worship. The altar is open the rest of the time. Come on down. Yes, come on down. I'll come back up and pray for you. Prayer team, just be active down here. Aaron.